All right, in response to the Enlightenment, there are some ministers, particularly Jonathan Edwards in Massachusetts, who start worrying about the ways in which people are, they feel like they're turning away from religion and they're using this enlightened thinking. So the Great Awakening is an attempt to like reawaken people to religion, and Edwards really plays with people's emotions. He wants them to stop thinking and start feeling. And so if you look at the sermon that you have here, Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God, you can see that, how he's trying to make us feel really kind of anxious if you read through it, right? He says that we're spiders being dangled over the pit of hell, and it's God that decides whether or not we fall into that pit. This is sometimes you've probably maybe heard of like fire and brimstone. That's referring to, and he references things like, you know, not specifically smallpox inoculation, but the ways that people try to take care of themselves to avoid this. Right? He says, you find you are kept out of hell. You do not see the hand of God in it, but other things, as the good state of your bodily constitution, your care of your own life, and the means you use for your preservation. But indeed, these things are nothing, he says, right? It's God that decides that. You think you're doing it, but it's really God. But what happens ultimately with the Great Awakening is that, I don't know if I really want to say backfires, but it kind of does. It kind of backfires on people like Edwards that start it, because it spreads throughout the colonies, which that certainly isn't backfiring in their mind. But itinerant ministers began preaching, and they draw huge crowds in fields like George Whitefield does. And many of these men aren't associated with a particular college or university or a particular church. And so a couple of things happen. First, the Great Awakening is significant because it's a shared experience throughout all 13 colonies. But second, when you get those itinerant ministers that are traveling around, drawing those those big crowds of people in fields, you'd have people of all different social classes gathering together, people of men and women gathering together, indentured, enslaved gathering together, and people they have that shared experience. Now, obviously, this isn't going to cross race or sex, but class lines. People will start maybe questioning those ideas of class because they have that shared experience. And then also, too, because those ministers aren't associated with a church or with a university per se, the people that are going to listen to them might start questioning ideas of like church hierarchy. And if you can question a minister, it's not that much more of a step to question a king. And then the third thing that happens with the Great Awakening that makes it significant is the ways in which different peoples approach the Christian faith. So you get like the development of new sects of Christianity, like the Methodist come of age in this time. And so this leads to ultimately religious freedom, because people think, I want to be able to practice how I want to practice, and I want them to be able to practice how they want to practice. And so ultimately after this we'll see religious freedom, which remember we didn't have with the Puritans when they executed Mary Dyer. You've got a document on your outline from Benjamin Franklin. He went to go see George Whitefield, and it just speaks to Whitefield's powers of speech. Apparently people could hear him speaking from miles away. He had this really great voice, and Franklin says, I think he's going to try to take money from me, but I'm not going to give him any. And then if you keep reading, right, by the end he's giving him his whole pocket. And I just think that's a great example, because of Franklin, he's the guy we use for the Enlightenment, the great thinker. If he can be persuaded by these Great Awakening ministers, well, surely all the rest of us would have been too. All right, if you have any questions, you can put them in the discussion module. That's the discussion board that's with this module. Take care.